It's about 8:30 in the morning on Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. Today is the 5th anniversary of the insurrection at the Capitol, during which tens of thousands of Trump supporters, believing his lies about the 2020 election being stolen, stormed the Capitol and beat the shit out of a couple of hundred police officers. We all watched it happen live, and then we watched the January 6th committee hearings, and they put out a report. And the copy of the report that I have has a foreword by Ari Melber. He wrote in this foreword on page 14, and I've shown this chart many, many times. Ari Melber made this helpful chart to show the 8 actual proven conspiracies that Donald Trump ran out of the Oval Office. Donald Trump was the hub of a wheel, in each of these conspiracies were the spokes of that wheel, with Donald Trump and Mark Meadows, his chief of staff at the time, at the center, running these conspiracies to try to overturn the 2020 election. And I've always found this chart very helpful because it details the 8 separate conspiracies and the timeline between November, December, and January 2020 into 2021. Immediately after the election, Rudy Giuliani filed 61 lawsuits, which Trump supporters love to say were thrown out because the judges wouldn't look at the actual evidence without thinking of the obvious. The obvious answer to that is that there was no admissible, credible evidence that the 2020 election was stolen. And even Rudy Giuliani admitted that in court on multiple occasions, because even he was not going to just flat out lie to a federal judge. He lost 60 of those 61 lawsuits. I believe almost all of them were opposed by attorney Mark Elias, who think if Mark Elias would have been attorney general instead of Merrick Garland. Yeah. Then we had the fake electors. And this is so coordinated out of the White House. I think it was attorneys John Eastman or Little Kenny Cheesebro, coordinated with Republicans in at least 7 states to put together fake slates of electors for the Electoral College. Then Trump tried to get states to overturn their own elections. He called Brad Raffensperger, something like that, who was then the Secretary of State for the state of Georgia, and was like, come on, guys, I just need you to find me 11,780 votes, because that was the margin by which he lost Georgia to Joe Biden. And he made those kinds of efforts in multiple states. There's a very famous video of Arizona Governor Doug Ducey signing the certification of the election, and while he was doing that, his phone rang and it was Donald Trump, and he did not take the call. Then there was a concerted effort to get Congress to overturn the votes, and that was participated in by so many Republicans in the House and the Senate. Ted Cruz was a part of that. Mike Lee was a part of that. Jim Jordan was a ringleader for that in the House. And then there was the pressure campaign on Mike Pence. And we'll come back to that in a moment. Then there was his interference with the Department of Justice. He was going to remove his acting attorney general, his acting deputy attorney general, and install Jeffrey Clark, an environmental attorney, in the Department of Justice because Jeffrey Clark said that he would do everything that Donald Trump wanted him to do. The acting Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General at the time refused to send letters to the 7 swing states on DOJ letterhead saying that we're investigating irregularities in your elections and the elections were probably stolen, so we want you to decertify them. The acting DOJ, or the acting Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General, said that they would resign first, and that the entire top leadership of the DOJ would resign along with them. And Jeffrey Clark actually tried to blackmail his 2 bosses, the acting Attorney General and the acting Deputy Attorney General. An environmental attorney within the DOJ tried to blackmail his 2 bosses. I think he's since been disbarred, and he was criminally charged. Then there was talk of having the military seize voting machines in swing states, and that fortunately didn't go anywhere. And then that brings us to January 6th. And the events of that day were the culmination of these other 7 conspiracies that Trump had been running out of the Oval Office for months to try to overturn the 2020 election. And Trump gave his speech at the Ellipse that morning, and seeing tens of thousands of his supporters beyond the perimeter of where he was speaking, it became very clear that his supporters were armed with weapons and didn't want to go through the metal detectors. And so he instructed his people to remove the metal detectors because he said, those people are not here to hurt me. His people did not remove the metal detectors, thankfully, but his supporters still went to the Capitol armed. And Dominic Pizola, a senior member of the Proud Boys, very famously, after they had attacked police officers at one of the barriers, he took one of their police shields and smashed his way in through a window. And that was the first moment that people broke into the Capitol. They were not escorted by police. Proud Boys broke in using a police shield to smash a window. And then Trump supporters flooded the Capitol building, resulting in Ashley Babbitt trying to break through a doorway to get to the House chamber, where members of the House were barricaded inside to protect themselves from the rioters. And when she broke a window and went through that window, she was shot and killed. I'd like to congratulate Ashley Babbitt on 5 years sobriety as of today. And then Mike Pence said that he would not do what Trump wanted him to do, which was to decertify electoral votes from multiple states, send those election results back to those states, to state Republican state legislatures, who had signaled that they would be willing to overturn the election results in those swing states and hand the presidency back to Donald Trump. Mike Pence said that he would not do that. And then Donald Trump put out a tweet that afternoon as the insurrection was happening. He did not put out a tweet that afternoon saying to his supporters that they need to go home. He put out a tweet saying that Mike Pence had failed, and Mike Pence was refusing to decertify the election in Donald Trump's favor, and that now Mike Pence was one of the bad guys. And that's when we saw people marching through the Capitol building, chanting, "Hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence," as Mike Pence and his family and his Secret Service detail were hiding in a parking garage in the basement of the Capitol. His Secret Service agents were texting their families that they might not make it home that day. Donald Trump tried to have a mob kill the Vice President of the United States of America because the Vice President, Mike Pence, stood up to him and refused to help him steal the election. Mike Pence deserves all the credit in the world for that one thing, for doing the right thing that day, and for speaking out against it since. But it was the culmination of Donald Trump running 7 or 8 different conspiracies out of the Oval Office for months because